Well, I'm informed that we have gone live. So let's get the show on the road. Hello to everyone, whether you're live or catching a replay. What can I say about my next guest? She's an international ambassador for the People's Health Alliance and an international speaker, an energy healer, training in Bodytalk, Reiki, among other things. She's a podcast host. More recently, her work has brought her to the People's Health Alliance, and I took this from the website. Imagine a world where we promote health instead of only treating disease. To many, this may even have you scratching your head, such is the nature of the current system. We will discover more on this, and I'm also looking forward to getting into Sarah's backstory, from surmounting loss and grief in her 20s, having lost her fiancé and baby, to giving service to others. The wonderful guest she now hosts on a podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to bring you the wonderful Sarah Chave. Sarah, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Danny, and thank you so much for inviting me to chat with you today. It's a real honour.
Oh, you're welcome. My pleasure. I wonder if we could start off by sharing a bit about your journey. I mean, you obviously had early tragedy in your life with loss and grief. You know, if you could talk about sort of that and how it shaped you, please.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I actually didn't start out wanting to be a therapist. I was an artist, and we were just chatting before we went live that I actually went to university in Danny's neck of the woods up in Newcastle, studied art there, painting. And I realise now that was, in a way, it was part of the same journey. It was about self-expression, about self-development, but through colour and painting. But when I was in my 20s, I was actually in New Zealand at the time. I was living in New Zealand, actually studying on my master's fine art, and literally just finished putting up the final exhibition for the masters, went to the beach to celebrate, and my fiance got caught in a rip and drowned. So I felt such deep grief. I found myself withdrawing from life, and went on a journey to really start finding a way to help myself out of this situation, because all the coping mechanisms that had supported me until that point were failing. So I started to, I'd already received Reiki and was practicing yoga. So I had a little bit of insight into the healing world, but I hadn't dived deeply. So this was really the beginning of my spiritual journey, diving really deeply, looking for things. I found sound healing during that time, and I found that the sound healing was incredibly powerful, because with grief it can tend to get stuck in the body, and I found that by toning it enabled me to release a lot of that immediate grief. And then, you know, I tried everything really, acupuncture, various different things, and then I discovered energy medicine. And I found a wonderful therapy called Bodytalk, which helps to balance the body, mind, spirit on all levels. And I was just blown away by it. You know, I found that it could really pinpoint exactly what it was that needed to be addressed. So I actually trained to become a practitioner. This would have been 2006, and really began my journey of service at that point. But what really, I have to just add, what really kind of cemented it, I mean, modalities are fabulous, you know, Bodytalk, more recently AccuNect is my therapy of my modality of choice that I work with. But ultimately it was that deep dive into myself and that spiritual connection that I found through my grieving process and through that journey of needing to look within, Francis. That was ultimately what got me through. I mean, you know, the practitioners helped, the therapists helped, but it was that, and it's that connection now that I still, you know, it's a resource, I think, once you've found that kind of deep connection.
Yeah, you mentioned AccuNect there. What is AccuNect? It's not something I've come across myself.
Yeah, and maybe some people haven't heard of Bodytalk. So Bodytalk is and AccuNect. They're both Chinese medicine-based systems. And actually, the founder of AccuNect was a senior instructor in the Bodytalk system, and then went on to create his own system. So there's a similarity between the two, and they very much work with finding your own health map, finding your own pathway back to health. And as a navigation tool, we use muscle checking. So it's a way of, some people call it biofeedback. You know, it's used in a different way in kinesiology. I think muscle checking is now more known than it was, say, when I started 20 years ago. And it's a way of navigating the body mind. So we establish a yes/no response. And using the health map, we can then go pinpoint right down to a really specific level. So we could be going down to a cellular level within the liver. We could be zooming out to the planets and bringing in the energy of Jupiter, which is all about positivity and optimism. And it's really tailoring that to each individual's needs. So we might go to specific belief systems that are holding people stuck, you know, because when we have conditioning, particularly as a child, you know, when we have conditioning and beliefs that are formed early in life, they become part of who we are. And often we don't even know they're there. So it's almost looking at that back door, working with the subconscious, that we can start to address them and really shift perspective. Like people have said to me that in order to become well, they've realized that they've needed to shift who they are, because you know, it's that belief, you know, that attachment to some kind of conditioning that's actually making them unwell. So it's a beautiful and powerful journey. And I work with both individuals and groups, because I think with what we're going through as a collective at this time, what I realized is there's only so many people I can help, you know, individual sessions. And, you know, with certainly the last few years, it's knocked people. And people have needed that support of working in a group, you know, to feel that they're part of something. But also it makes it much more financially available for people as well, because obviously if I'm working with a group, you know, I can do it at a lot better price and still be able to support my family. Whereas, you know, working with individuals, you have to respect your family's needs as well, sort of thing. So yeah, that's been really powerful, and I'll be happy at some point to chat with you about some of the groups that I've been doing, in case anyone's interested to take part in any of those.
Yeah, for sure. We will bring that up a little bit later on.
Sure.
Before we went live, you mentioned that you're not naturally an outgoing person. You're inherently shy, and you had to work through some issues to get yourself out there into the public domain. So I'd love to talk about how you surmounted shyness.
Yeah, well, I'm actually a really shy person. I was brought up with, I guess, you know, like many people our generation, it's kind of expression wasn't really encouraged in the family. You know, that emotional kind of, you know, not really acknowledging what was going on. So, you know, through the work as a healer, I'd addressed a lot of that stuff, but I realized that I was still hiding. You know, there was an aspect of me hiding. And I went through a journey of really exploring what that was. I became an instructor in something called AccuNect, which we've spoken about as well. I started teaching self-care classes, which I think helped. But the universe was nudging me to the next level. And I had to work through like past life stuff, all kinds of persecution. You know, I think a lot of us as healers hold a lot of persecution energy, perhaps from past lives where we've had difficult situations. So that can play a part. But I think really a big part of it was just doing it. Like, you know, I get guided by spirit, and I was guided to set up this podcast. And I didn't really know what I was doing. I'm not a technical minded person. I hadn't even got a mic. I didn't know how to edit videos, and I just started doing it. And I think the journey of actually doing it, it's still a journey for me. You know, I can still get nervous. I can still be a little bit shy at times. But I think it's the actual doing it. And I think that as a collective, that's the transition that we're going through, because in the past, you know, only those people that had, you know, high profile, you know, perhaps had a position, that were able to speak up. But one of the things that I love about the People's Health Alliance, and this is why I've been really drawn to be involved with it, is its power to the people. And, as we transition into the age of Aquarius, which is happening at the moment, we're in that transition as Pluto moves out of, gosh, my mind's gone blank. Pluto's moving into Aquarius out of, I think it's Saturn that it's been in many years, but I might have got that wrong. My mind's having a little bit of a blank there. So as it moves into Aquarius, it's that shift in power to the people, and it's really rising, so anybody can, press the record on the, get on Zoom or whatever, press record and put it out there. If you've got, it's everybody's got a voice, everybody's got something to say. It's not, everybody's voice is important, because we all bring our own unique contribution at this time. So I'm loving that shift. I'm really embracing it, and it's certainly helping me to overcome my shyness, because it's really shifting away from standing there as an expert, in the front, sort of, that kind of idea, into being in the circle where we all hold and support each other, and we all have something of value to contribute.
Yes, well said. You meant all of that. I noticed you've had lots of fantastic guests, and one of them that stood out to me was Diana Cooper.
Yes.
She takes me back to the early part of my development 20 plus years ago, listening to her meditations, audios, reading her books. So how did you two connect?
Yeah, well, I loved interviewing Diana Cooper, and I actually have a funny story, because after the podcast, I realized that I was actually, it was like a transmission, and it's a sort of transmission whereby usually you'd relax and take it all in. And I was sort of holding this podcast, and I was chatting with her afterwards, and I was actually in Spain, and I said to her, "Oh yes, I've been swimming in the Atlantis." No, she said, "Is it the Atlantic?" I said, "Oh no, it's not the Atlantis that I've been swimming in. It's the Med." And I'm thinking, that doesn't sound quite right. So I was obviously still processing all this kind of energy that she was bringing in. Yeah, Diana Cooper is actually coming to Portugal in October. And it's this most incredible event. Basically, she was guided to come to Portugal. Archangel Raphael, who she works with, has an etheric retreat over Portugal. And it was very important to come to Portugal at this time. It's her first live event, I think, in about 5 years. And it's for 500 people. It's going to be live streamed all over the world. And I've been involved in helping with this event. And it's just like, I've been working on it this year with them. Someone called Adrian Lee, who I also interviewed on my podcast. And the energy is just building now. Someone called Tim Wilde, I'm sure most of you know who Tim Wilde is going to be participating in the event, and a couple of others as well, AJ Roberts, a couple of the others. And I'm going to be interviewing, some of those as well. So it's a super exciting, powerful day. And the idea is that during this event, we merge with our MOMAD, and people doing this in groups all over the world, it's going to help shift and raise the vibration of the whole planet. Diana's actually billed it as important as the convergence of 2012. So yeah, I'm just super excited to be involved with that. And it was obviously a real privilege to have Diana on my podcast and to be supporting her with this amazing event in October. So if anyone wants to know any more about it, I believe the live tickets are nearly sold out. I think there's like 30 left or something at this point in time, but they'll probably be gone in a flash. But there's still the potential to connect to the live stream. So if you want to buy a live stream ticket, you can go to Diana's website to get that.
Wow, that's all fantastic. So you mentioned earlier that you got involved with the People's Health Alliance, or the people by the people, and I've been on their website, and the core message is to be able to treat. Oh, my camera's gone a bit blurry. To be able to promote health rather than just treat disease. And I'd love you to start talking about the work you do with the People's Health Alliance, because obviously you're an ambassador for them on an international level.
Yeah, well, I moved to Portugal back in 2020, and we were guided to move here because we wanted to live a sort of simpler, more sustainable way of life, and set ourselves up self-sufficiently. So we kind of put solar panels. We're moving off grid, got chickens, all that side of things. But I soon realized that for me, there can be a kind of process of reinventing the wheel, where you're trying to do all these things. And actually, I think part of the shift that we're going through as a collective is, it's that village, moving into that village mentality of building networks. So my partner's actually, he's got background in growing. So I'm leaving that side of things to him. And I realized that for me, it was about really supporting that consciousness shift of what we're going through, planetary ascension, this shift of, and part of that shift is us coming together, working together, supporting each other, building networks. So when I heard about the People's Health Alliance, I was really interested. It was something that was set up, thinking, where are we? It started April 2022. It was first formed, and it absolutely took off. It was formed firstly in the UK as kind of pushback from failing healthcare systems, long waiting lists. There was this sense of, are we going to wait around for the healthcare we deserve, or shall we set up another system? So the idea was both allopathic and alternative practitioners coming together to work together. So that in itself is incredibly powerful if you're setting up a network and there's a system of referrals within that. And in the long run, it would be wonderful if we can have things like acupuncture and things in our hospitals, like you have in China and Asia. So it's this process of integrating and building networks so we can all start to support each other. So it's a beautiful journey. So I was interested in it, but I had a look in Portugal and not much seemed to be happening. And then I had an invitation to speak at this event, and I got chatting with the founders of the PHA, and they put me in contact with the Portugal group, which at that point was quite small. And I sort of put it out to my networks. The group grew. I got involved with setting it up. I'm now working with this wonderful guy called Roberto Chatwin, who's just about to move to Portugal, actually. He's also an ambassador for the People's Health Alliance. And he set up something called COVID Positive News. I don't know, a lot of people might know of him and his network, the Conscious People's Network. So we're really working together with another lady to build the energy here. We're currently building the website for Portugal, the database, so that people can connect and network and find the support that they need locally. And yeah, I was invited by the founders to be an international ambassador, which is a great honor. And it's been really beautiful. I've been able to interview quite a lot of the ambassadors on my podcast, which is called New Earth Podcast. Will you put the link to it underneath the video, Danny? It's if you want to find me on YouTube, it's at Ascension Pathway. If you go to YouTube, it's at Ascension Pathway, and you'll see it finds my YouTube channel where I have all my podcasts. I also do free healing sessions. I've just been doing a 7-part chakra activation series. So, there's lots of amazing resources on there because I've had the privilege of speaking with incredible people. So yeah, that's been an amazing journey that's still very much unfolding. And I'm loving all the beautiful synchronicities and connections that are happening through that as well.
Yeah, so the grand vision is to have the People's Health Alliance working in conjunction with and alongside allopathic. Is that the idea?
Yeah, well, they're actually branching out more now because because the thing is it's not just about, when you start to look at these things, everything is holistic, everything's interconnected, so sometimes we do need a doctor. If we need surgery, I want to be going to a doctor. I don't want to be going to a herbalist. So to have that kind of interrelationship in terms of when it's necessary and when the doctor can refer, that's really helpful. Yeah. But also, when you start to look at this, health involves food. And so they've currently setting up the Food and Farming Alliance that works alongside that to make direct contact with the farmers so that we can cut out the middleman supermarket. So again, it's creating those sustainable networks so that we can move into sovereignty and self-responsibility. And they're actually going to be setting up the People's Alliance that will involve law and all kinds of aspects as well. So it's an incredible journey. So if anyone hasn't heard of the People's Health Alliance, do look it up, and the People's Food and Farming Alliance. Go to their website and have a look, and I'll send you it's called the PHA. There's hyphens and things. I'm not quite sure. It's best if you wouldn't mind to put it under the video, Danny, the way to, if you just look up the People's Health Alliance, I'm sure you'll find the website, no trouble. So
yeah, for sure, I will add those pertinent links. Not a problem. I'm obviously interviewing the wonderful Sarah Chave. If you've got any questions or comments, either live or watching the replay, please do pop them in the chat. It helps the algorithm push this interview out to more people, and obviously we will get back to you and answer your question and respond to your comments. Before we went live, you also mentioned about having an exciting new radio show as well. I'd love you to talk about that.
Yeah, well, again, this has been a really interesting journey because part of, I spoke earlier about, arriving in Portugal and, sort of this reinventing the wheel, trying to do all these different things that weren't really in my area. And I got this message from Spirit that I needed to set up this group called Creating New Earth. And it was really supporting people in a group with the consciousness shifts that we're going through in a collective. So I ran that group for about a year, and it was a paid for group. And I stopped it in April because I had the feeling it was going to come through in another form, but I've just been sitting with it and I didn't quite know how. And recently I had this opportunity to talk once a month, to have my own show once a month on Holistic Health Radio, which is actually a Telegram radio channel. I'm going to be doing that once a month. And it will be really a support group for anyone that's navigating the current shifts that we're going through as a collective. So we'll have a different theme each session. So, for example, one of the themes might be standing in your truth. Some of the topics we had when we worked with it last year were awakening the divine masculine, feminine, all kinds of topics, shifting into cooperation. We'll have a different theme each month, and that will be participant led as well. I'm open to suggestions if there's something that's particularly poignant for each month. We'll, as a group, have a discussion around that, and then I will be doing an energy healing session for the group. It will be recorded, so I will put it out as well in my channels afterwards if you're not able to take part in the live conversation. So yeah, I feel really good about that. It feels really nice to be doing that as a free access to all sort of situation, because I feel as a collective we are going through such a huge transition. And if we can work together in that way to find solutions in that kind of format, I think it's incredibly powerful.
Yeah, for sure. So people can obviously listen to these, tune into them freely and live.
Yeah. I mean, if you're on Telegram, probably the easiest is if you're on Telegram, find me on Telegram first, which is @Ascension Pathway. And I will be posting in there, when I'm about to do this live video, and I'll put the link to that radio channel in there. So probably that's the easiest if you're on Telegram and you'd like to access this. But if you just want to listen in and not bothered about going to the live, I'll be posting it on all across social media, in my Facebook group, my Facebook, Sarah Chave. So people won't have a trouble if they're connected with me in some way. They won't have a trouble to find it.
Cool. Thank you for that. I want to talk more about your healing work, your client work, whether one-on-one or groups. But before we do, I want to think about what one piece of advice would you give your younger self from the perspective. And life experience and wealth of knowledge you have today, you could go back and meet your 20-something-year-old self, what one bit of advice would you give? Them?
The words that came in for me when you said that were to trust myself. I think because of the shyness and there was quite a lot of self-doubt, and actually I think that it's potential to kind of waste time in that. So that self-trust, for me, that's foundational, because if you have that self-trust, it's like it's a resilience, that because things happen in life, and you can't rely on what's going on outside or circumstance, but if you can actually trust yourself, and also trust in the divine, that faith for me was also a key thing that did develop quite early on for me. It was in my 20s, but I think the self-trust took a little bit longer. So that would be kind of a more important message for me. But I think that faith and trust is absolute key, particularly at this time, because we're living in such crazy times where all those things that perhaps we'd look to are falling and transitioning. So the only real measure we have is that alignment with ourselves and with the greater universe. And if we can hold that position, we're going to have much more resilience.
You mentioned foundational there. Is any sort of work or technique you did from a foundational basis? I know you've also had Sharon King on your show as well, as I have done. She's been on my show back in the day, years ago. Is any sort of work you did that really helped to shift that?
Well, I think for me, the AccuNet teacher training was really powerful, because it was just, it was all around that, moving through the resistance so you can become a teacher and have that voiced. So I think it's what I spoke about earlier, that just doing it, that enables the trust. I think we all can have a tendency of staying in our comfort zones, and that's completely understandable. And I think it's important to have an element of that. So it's a balance between that growth, but also, sometimes we do need that comfort and nurturing and staying within certain sort of boundaries. But as much as possible, I've began working with like extending my comfort zones. And that was actually something that a very wise person, when I was going through the grief process, this person had been through their own very deep grief process. And they said to me, you need to get comfortable in an uncomfortable place. And that was something that really stuck with me, because until that point in my life, I'd always, I was quite a driven young person, and I'd always been able to push through things. But actually, at this point in time, when I was in this deep grief, all those kind of mechanisms weren't working. So I literally just had to sit with the grief and sit with the, being out of my comfort zone. It was like sitting on the edge of a cliff, but note I say sitting on the edge of the cliff, not standing. It was like getting comfortable there. So for me, that was the key, and that's the key for growth, and that is foundational for self-trust. Really, it's that ability to kind of move, to move out of the comfort zones and get comfortable in those places where perhaps we wouldn't naturally feel comfortable.
Yes, I agree totally, because it's in the doing that you get more confident, you get more experience. You can't bypass experience, you can't buy it. So when I first started doing my videos, they were shocking. I was like a rabbit caught in the headlights. It looked so awkward and unnatural. But I like to look back on those now and again and think, good God, how much more natural and comfortable am I on a camera now than I was back in 2016 when I started.
Amazing. Yeah. So you've been through your own journey with this, it sounds, as well, Danny.
Yeah, for sure. It felt like I used to do in-person groups, workshops. And moving to camera and Facebook Lives was such a big transition for me. I remember the first one I did, I made a little video on my smartphone, uploaded it to Facebook, and then I went out, left my phone in the house, and I went over a couple of hours, came back. dared to look, and it had like 200 views and loads of comments, and I was like, oh my God.
Yay.
And that was the start of it. And
Yay. Well done for making the leap, because
thank
I
you.
think that's what's being, and for it's not always speaking, it might for other people because I think that's the thing with this new earth, part of my work is really about creating new earth. And everyone has different roles within that. I see myself as a way shower, with both the healing work, the podcasts, the group work that I'm doing. But for some people it might be with the children, it might be that it's and there's just so many different roles. So it's much more about, if there's that calling, do it. Just do it. Even if you don't feel comfortable, do it, because that is what we're stepping into with New Earth. It's, we've lived at a time where people have had jobs to make money, but that's not gonna carry forward in New Earth. It's about that passion. It's about that soul's calling. That's what we're stepping into. So I just really encourage people, if you're having any kind of callings from the universe, to really follow them and be guided by that.
Absolutely. Well said. I'd love you to talk a little bit more about your healing work, whether one-on-one, groups, some of the transformations you've observed through holding a space for somebody to explore their inner worlds, their psyche, their subconscious. And, I'm sure you've got some stories to share.
Yeah, well, it's it's a powerful journey for people, and I usually get people to commit to 5 sessions, because I usually say within that time frame, I expect results, and if you don't have results, maybe it's not for you. But what people, which doesn't happen very often, most people find that they really shift in the consciousness and shift in who they are, because we have a lot of conditioning in the world that we live in. We have conditioning from our parents, we have conditioning from schools, and we believe that. If someone told you when you were a child, I don't know what it was that made me shy and unable to speak, in public and things like that. I don't know, but someone might have said something at school or something. And it's that unraveling of those aspects, that we start to let go of who we thought we are and start to become who we really are. So it's letting go of all that. I like to look at it as like filters on a fly screen. It's like, but we can actually attach to those filters so much that we actually limit ourselves through that. So the work that I'm doing, it's working more with the subconscious to really unravel all that conditioning. It's working on a body, mind, and spirit level. So because that's the only way for holistic health, really. We need to be working on all those levels. So we could be working very physically, and people often say that the work that I do is very embodied. Like I'll often, if we were working with the liver, for example, I would get people to hold over the liver to bring oxygenated blood and awareness to it. And it may well be that the belief system that we're working with is actually being held in the liver. So we're working not only on that kind of mind point, but how that's kind of lodged in the physical body. And it may well be that there's a connection with our spiritual path as well around all of that. So it's kind of all the different layers that we unravel. And people have such deep transformation with it. I have a rating system to track what's going on, and often people are coming in with 10s. I had one lady that I said, can you rate things between 1 and 10? And she was going 600 to pretty much everything. And then within the 5 sessions, we got it. Sometimes there's things that can stick, like say we're rating 10 things, some things will stick, but the majority we're down to 2 or 3. So it's really interesting, because you can't really, some of these things will be like standing up for yourself. If you can't stand up for yourself, how would you rate that? 10 being high. So obviously I'm not rating that. I'm rating their perception of that. So their perception has shifted, from, in this case, 600 to 2. So it's very powerful work. And sometimes it's quite subtle. People will just notice that the way they react to something has shifted. Sometimes it's not them that notice. You have people that come in, and sometimes you're treating their partner as well. And the person that, say the lady, comes in and will say, no, nothing's changed at all. There's absolutely nothing. It's all the same, all the ratings. And then I'll speak to the husband, and the husband will say, thank you so much. My wife is just such a different person. So that's quite an interesting phenomena as well when that happens. So that's also good feedback, because you do have some people that perhaps can't perceive the shifts in the same way as others. It's really beautiful work. And in terms of the group work, that's been really powerful as well. I do lots of different group work stuff. I've mentioned Creating New Earth already. And I also do a self-care class, which is really deep, and I've got lots of stories from the self-care class, which is really empowering, because that is people working on themselves. This is people, when they learn the self-care, they do that on themselves, and they come back with these incredible stories. So I had one lady who came along to a self-care class, and she had a very physical job. She was a cleaner, and she also had about 12 or 13 horses. So incredibly physical. And she wasn't, she's kind of later in life. So it was really starting to catch up on her. And she was having to take painkillers every day. And she came on this day class that it was a live class at that point, but now I do it online as well. And she decided not to take her painkillers that day. And she was really struggling. She was uncomfortable in a chair and difficulty moving. Anyways, by the end of the day, she literally jumped out of her chair and said that she wasn't in pain, which she was astonished by. And she did the self-care. I recommended doing it every day for 28 days. That's what I recommend for the self-care class. And she actually stayed off the painkillers, and it was a real transformation. So I've got lots of those kind of stories from self-care as well. So I like to tell those stories because I obviously have in my own clinic, I have all these kind of stories, but the impression then is that I'm doing that, and actually I'm not. I just hold the space, and for any healing is ultimately self-healing. We are powerful beings, and we can let go of this stuff. So it's incredibly powerful work. So in terms of other group stuff, I am running a free event next week. I'm just trying to think how I can direct people to that, probably on my Facebook page, or maybe Danny, you can put the link to that somewhere. It's called Awakening the Divine Feminine, and it's at 7:30 on Wednesday, the 30th of August, so next week. And I'm running it with a lady who I actually interviewed on my podcast, Sally Hinchliffe. And we're going to be doing lots of work to embody the divine feminine. We'll be doing a meditation, a healing session. We'll have a bit of a discussion. And that's completely free. And it will lead on to a 3-part monthly gathering for women to work with the divine feminine. That's a low cost group that starts in October. Where are we? No, September, end of September. So in a month's time. And then I also, I worked for nearly a year on an ancestral healing group. And that was incredibly powerful because, again, this time there's this huge opportunity to let go of not only what's come through our own lifetimes, but also what we've inherited. So that can be karmic, it can be ancestral. And working together in a group, it really has that potential to clear on a very deep level, because a lot of the things that we're going through as a collective at the moment, war, pandemic, all those kind of things, it activates our ancestral trauma. So I was running a group with a cranial osteopath called Mary Bolingbroke for nearly a year, and we had a little pause for a few months, and we're going to be starting that again later this year. We've got a free one in October that will then run into a 6-part low-cost monthly group on ancestral healing. So there's lots of opportunities. So so just do look them up, and as I say, there are free options as well for people.
Have you got these all collectively on a website or Facebook page?
Yeah, I mean, they're on my website. All my classes are on my website, which is www.replenishzing, so that's a Z, replenishzing.com. And yeah, you can find all my classes on there. I'm not sure the free events are on there. Probably you're best to find that through my Facebook or Telegram group.
Yeah, I just want to pick up on something you said earlier. You said ultimately, which I agree, it is the person doing the work, doing the self-healing. But I don't think you should discount so much the influence you have on that. All the inner work you've done has got a big bearing on the space that you can hold, the energy that you can contain, the safe space. You've got to know what you're doing, and just stop people getting re-traumatized and things like that. So there is a lot of your own expertise that comes into it as well.
Well, I think that's exactly it, Dan. It's that space holding, which often you gain through experience of working with people, but also your own life experience of having to hold yourself within, difficult spaces or whatever. So some of it is that personal experience in life. And one of the mechanisms that I work with is a quantum physics kind of theory, and that is observation changes reality. So one of the actions that I'm doing as a therapist is I'm observing what's happening, and that observation enables a shift. So I'm always observing the potential for healing and change, and I'm like the cheerleader for people. I always believe that's possible. I'm not looking for problems. I'm not looking for diagnosis. I'm looking for what could be better. I'm looking for how we can become more our true selves and shine that light. So that's, I'm holding space for that for people, and I feel that that's a real gift. Not it's a gift to be able to hold that kind of space for people, because it's in a world that's focused on problems often, to hold that potential for people to be their better self, I think is a really beautiful offering.
Yes, what an affirmation of life. On that beautiful note, I think we'll call it a wrap. I don't know. I mean, I'll obviously put pertinent links if you've asked me to in the description. Have you got any final thoughts you want to end on? Anything you haven't shared?
I don't think so. I think we've covered everything. I just want to thank you so much for the opportunity to chat with you, Danny, and thank you everybody for listening today. It's I hope that you've benefited from even one part of it. Anybody listening in, and I hope it gives some inspiration really for this transitional time that we're going through.
Yes, you've given so much. There's a lot of value, inspiration within this interview. So thank you to the viewers for watching. If you've gotten value from this, maybe share the love, share it out with your audience, with your Facebook friends list. So until the next one, much love to you all, and bye for now.